Hello. Okay. So the word of the Lord, 7,000 prophets. I'm going to start at 1 Kings 18:22 through 19:15 or 19:18, I think it is. So it's going to be a lengthy bit of reading. So skip, do what you need to do to read on your own and get to the point. But the way God is leading me with this, I am going to start 1 Kings 18 and 22. Then Elijah said to them, I am the only one of the Lord's prophets left, but Baal has 450 prophets. Get 2 bulls for us. Let Baal's prophets choose one for themselves, and let them cut it into pieces and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. I will prepare the other bull and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. Then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord, the God who answers by fire. He is God. Then all the people said, What you say is good. Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, Choose one of the bulls and prepare it first, since there are so many of you. Call on the name of your God, but do not light the fire. So they took the bull given them and prepared it. Then they called on the name of Baal from morning till noon. Baal, answer us, they shouted. But there was no response. No one answered, and they danced around the altar they had made, because he ain't real. At noon, Elijah began to taunt them. Shout louder, he said. Surely he is a god. Perhaps he is deep in thought or busy traveling. Maybe he is sleeping and must be awakened. And people would say that's not God, like you're not of God, if they heard Elijah talking nowadays. So they shouted louder and slashed themselves with swords and spears, as was their custom, until their blood flowed. Midday passed, and they continued their frantic prophesying until the time for the evening sacrifice. But there was no response. No one answered. No one paid attention. Then Elijah said to all the people, Come here to me. They came to him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord, which had been torn down. Elijah took 12 stones, one for each of the tribes descended from Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had come, saying, Your name shall be Israel. With the stones, he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he dug a trench around it large enough to hold 2 seahs of seed. He arranged the wood, cut the bull into pieces, and laid it on the wood. Then he said to them, Fill 4 large jars with water and pour it on the offering and on the wood. Do it again, he said, and they did it again. Do it a 3rd time, he ordered, and they did it a 3rd time. The water ran down around the altar and even filled the trench. At the time of sacrifice, the prophet Elijah stepped forward and prayed, Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord, answer me, so these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again. Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil, and also licked up the water in the trench. When all the people saw this, they fell prostrate and cried, The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God. Then Elijah commanded them, Seize the prophets of Baal. Don't let anyone get away. They seized them, and Elijah had them brought down to the Kishon Valley and slaughtered there. And Elijah said to Ahab, look at this. The prophet was slaughtering the false prophets of the enemy of Baal. And Elijah said to Ahab, Go, eat and drink, for there is the sound of heavy rain. So Ahab went off to eat and drink, but Elijah climbed to the top of Carmel, bent down to the ground, and put his face between his knees. Go and look toward the sea, he told his servant, and he went up and looked. There is nothing there, he said. 7 times Elijah said, Go back. Elijah said, "Go back." The seventh time, the servant reported, "A cloud as small as a man's hand is rising from the sea." So Elijah said, "Go and tell Ahab, hitch up your chariot and go down before the rain stops you." Meanwhile, the sky grew black with clouds, the wind rose, a heavy rain started falling, and Ahab rode off to Jezreel. The power of the Lord came on Elijah, and tucking his cloak into his belt, he ran ahead of Ahab all the way to Jezreel. Now Ahab told Jezebel everything Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. So Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah to say, "May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like that of one of them." What a threat, right? Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. Even after all that great miracles that God just did through him, that threat and spirit of intimidation, and a very real threat at that, as she had already killed the other prophets, right? It was so strong that it had the mighty man of God who did all those powerful miracles and saw God's work move. It was that strong that it put him in fear and intimidation. So Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there while he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. He came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. "I've had enough, Lord," he said. "Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors." Then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. All at once, an angel touched him and said, "Get up and eat." He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank and then lay down again. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." So he got up and ate and drank, strengthened by that food. He traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. There he went into a cave and spent the night. And the word of the Lord came to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He replied, "I have been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars, and put your prophets to death with the sword. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." The Lord said, "Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. Then a voice said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He replied, "I have been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars, and put your prophets to death with the sword. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." The Lord said to him, "Go back the way you came and go to the desert of Damascus. When you get there, anoint Hazael king over Aram. Also anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, king over Israel, and anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat, from Abel Maholah, to succeed you as prophet. Jehu will put to death any who escape the sword of Hazael, and Elisha will put to death any who escape the sword of Jehu." And this is our word. "Yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed down to Baal, and whose mouths have not kissed him. Amen. So much to unpack. Amazing, very, interesting, energetic, just one of those great adventurous stories in the word of the Lord. And even saying stories, I don't like to just call it, stories, because we have to make sure we keep that perspective and understanding in real time that this is history, right? History of the people of God, of the men and women of God who God set out to do certain exploits and certain assignments. But so a lot to unpack, a lot of, action going on in the setting where Jezebel and Ahab, some of the most wicked rulers that even, the world talks about, that ungodliness and wickedness of that name, idea, spirit, symbolism of Jezebel, dealing with the wickedness of Ahab and Jezebel murdering all of God's prophets that she could find. Elijah standing up with the prophets of Baal, those, operating with Jezebel, the wicked prophets of Baal standing against them and slaughtering them, and Jezebel coming back, now I'm going to kill you. And so the work, the assignment, and just the work of those who have a great boldness, public, loud, very out there and loud and public type of call or assignment for God, where they're going to suffer very public persecution, very public attacks. They're going to have to be able to stand with a whole lot of scrutiny, a whole lot of lies, a whole lot of threats, a whole lot of intimidation from people that have the power or the ability to make good on those threats and that intimidation. And, they have the influence to make people believe the lies that they're saying about these people. Those men and women of God who have those type of assignments and calls, what will happen, just like with Elijah, you will be worn out. The enemy, because of the call and the assignment being so great and mighty and public, and proving God to be real and true and right, the enemy, it will work overtime to intimidate, to threaten, to discourage, and depress or oppress, whatever you want to call it, those men and women of God. People even nowadays talk about it where, they know how discouraging it can be, and you call out to God. And I speak even for myself. You call out to God because of that call and that assignment and the heaviness of warfare and persecution and attacks that come along with it, where the weight of it is severe. And so you call out to God because of the exhaustion and just, I don't want to do this anymore. I am tired. I am done. And again, I say I speak even from that experience. And so what happens sometimes is you get so caught up in the warfare and the attacks that it wears you down, and your mind tends to, you kind of look so inward and so into what you're doing in your assignment, but not so much the assignment is for the purpose, the call of God. And so no matter how I feel, no matter, where this assignment leads me to, no matter where God pushes me into, that it was never about me. It is always about God's overall purpose, the war, the battle, right? This is a battle. I'm a piece of the war in whatever battle I'm in for the purpose of God, which is that overall war. And so it's never about me and just my assignment, my call, my personal warfare, my personal battles. It's that overall picture of whatever my assignment, my battle is within the overall war. And so keeping our minds that way, remembering I'm not the only one going through this. And not only that, I can't judge that I'm the only one. I can't judge and think that I'm the only one who is speaking the truth. I'm the only one who is being bold. I'm the only one, no. We are not the only ones. You are not the only one out there. So God is not necessarily going to reveal every piece of his plan to us. We will never know everything that God is doing. We will never know everyone that God has reserved unto himself. And the importance of that too, we'll mess up the whole plan. God can't tell us his full battle plan, his full plan of war, because we could ruin it. If he's trying to do some type of secret ambush attack on the enemy's camp, but, we start speaking about it because we know a certain thing that's going to happen. We tell the wrong person, that totally ruins what God had set up. And so I'm just going to share to put it all together, I guess just what God gave me. So what God gave me, 7,000 prophets, activate. Everyone has a part to play. God is the one who is spearheading this war. He does not share his war plans so that they will not be interrupted or intercepted. With everything that's going on, all around us, sometimes we forget that our call, our assignment, it's not about us. It's much bigger, and we only have a part to play in this war, in the overall war. Everyone's part can look different. God will not activate everyone all at once. Some he will have hiding even in plain sight. So sometimes, people feel like, oh, well, that person, they're supposed to be a believer, but they're not speaking out about this. They're not speaking loudly about this, or they're still working at, whatever company it is, or for whatever administration or whatever system they're in, but they're supposed to be one of us. They're supposed to be a believer, but not understanding, you don't know what that person's call, that person's assignment is. That person may be called to hide certain things about their belief, certain things about themselves, because they need to be in that system to infiltrate. They need to be in that system to be able to influence and make the change. And so our call is not everybody's call. Someone else's call is not my call. It's not your call. And so it's going to look different. Someone may be called to boldness, to be a martyr, a martyrdom, and another may be called to keep quiet, observe, listen, and pray. And so I'm going to continue with what God gave me. We need Obadiahs and Esthers just as much as we need the Elijahs and Elishas and the Mordecais. We need those within the systems of corruption and wickedness so that they can influence, infiltrate, convert, and save. And so even just the thought about Obadiah, right? He worked within the administration of, Jezebel and Ahab. And so as they're killing all these prophets, Obadiah, he's still devout, and reverent of God. But he may not have been very obvious about it or spoken his disagreements. But guess what he was able to do? He was able to stay in that position of power and authority and save many prophets by hiding them, because no one would know that Obadiah would do that. And so by him not advertising and putting out there, his complete allegiance and devotion to God and against what Jezebel and Ahab were doing, he was able to save many. And so, You had Elijah at this time who was boldly, speaking out and operating against them. But Obadiah, who's quietly not speaking it, but he's working within the system, infiltrating, getting knowledge of things that are going to take place that would harm God's people and able to counteract it. Esther was, given like wisdom from Mordecai, who it didn't seem like, Mordecai was, just like hiding being a Jew. But he gave her the wisdom of not speaking about who she was. And so she was able to infiltrate in that system. And at the time when it was needed most, Esther, the word says such a time as this, Esther was able to step in and finally reveal to the one person that it mattered, who had the authority to save and counteract the attack against her people, the Jews. She was right there with that one person who never knew who she was. And so right at the time when it needed to be revealed, she was able to reveal who she was and save her people. And so that's our Obadiahs, our Esthers. We need those within the systems of corruption and wickedness to influence, infiltrate, convert, and save. Not everyone is called to openness. Not everyone is called to speak loudly. But all who are called must listen to the Spirit and follow the leading of the Spirit to accomplish God's purpose. And so it's a good thing to make sure that, you're never, yes, we see each other and watch each other, us believers. And, yes, we can love each other and love watching the work and the call and the assignment of each other, but we never covet it, we never compare, and we never try to imitate or take on each other's gifts, each other's assignments, each other's call, because we were made with everything that we need, and God will continue to pour into us everything that we need for our specific, our very particular, calling, assignment, gift, whatever it is. He has made us for that purpose, for that thing. And so we can't try to take on someone else's. We can't try to judge someone else's because we really don't know. So it has to all be from the Spirit of God. We have to listen, take heed to the way that the Spirit of God is leading us so that we're doing it God's way. Because there's going to be, very specific instructions to some of us. There's going to be time critical, time sensitive instructions to some of us. And so we have to know what is for us in the right timing, the right moment that we're supposed to move forward with whatever it is that God is telling us to move forward with. And so we have to be so focused on God and what God is calling us to and what our specific assignments are, that we are not focused or distracted by other people's calls and assignments. Follow the leading of the Spirit to accomplish God's purpose. We must be careful in judging each other's call and assignments. We have to let go of any part of us that is self-centered. So it can't be all about just my call, my assignment. It's about me. My call, my assignment is about what God is trying to accomplish overall. We have to understand that we are not the only ones fighting for God's purpose. Just because we don't see what we like to see, right? So it might feel discouraging and lonely when it feels like you're the only one, because you don't know that that person next to you is covert, and they are quietly over there praying while they watch you being martyred, while they watch you being persecuted. You don't know that the reason that you got that clear word to speak boldly and loudly and confound the wise or shut down the ungodly, you don't even realize that the reason you got that, and the reason you got that strength in that internal power from the Spirit to do that is because that quiet brother or sister that you don't even know is really walking with the Lord. They're quietly praying for you because everybody knows who you are. Everybody knows that you're doing it for God, and you're bold and you're loud and you're clear with authority. But that brother over there, they don't even know. That brother over there is listening to the gossip about you, is listening to the slander and the lies, and is able to counteract it when they hear it and they stand up for you. They're able to counteract it when they hear it, and then they pray, Lord, they're about to try to do this to this person. I pray that you would give that person strength when they go forth into that meeting where they're going to try to ambush them or sabotage them. And so that brother can't make it known. That sister can't publicize that she's on your side, that she is on the side of God, because she has to be able to get that intel so that she can pray and intercede, so that you can go forth with strength from the intercession that she gave up for you. So we're not going to know it all, and that's okay. That's why we just have to trust and have that faith and that trust, and not judge too quickly what we think is God, what we think isn't God, what we think another brother or sister should be doing. Because our assignment is ours, theirs is theirs, but overall, we all work in concert to accomplish God's purpose. So just because we don't see what we like to see, or because we don't know more of God's plan, does not mean he's not working it. And I'm kind of sure, I'm not fully quite sure. I know how this applies to me, but for me, speaking as to whoever, whenever is going to see it, in closing, this is just what God gave me. God will allow the enemy to climb all the way up to the top just so that he can have a longer, harder, more dramatic fall. Amen.